You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns. Welcome back to Chakras and Shotguns, episode 19. I'm Jen.
And I'm Mik. Welcome back.
How are you today?
You know, I'm good. I'm in a good place. Hanging out. My boo's on vacation this week.
Yes.
So she's much more relaxed. Celebrated our anniversary. 6 years in the game.
Woo woo.
So yeah.
6 years.
I'm in a good mood, good place.
Good. Same. Yeah. It's, we're not really traveling as much because of COVID. So it's a little bit of a staycation. We're trying to sleep train, clean closets. We meaning me because I'm on vacation, but trying to find that balance between relaxation and productivity. So yeah, which is always difficult. Like I need to clean my closet, and I need to clean out the pantry, and I need to like wipe down all the baseboards. And
I hear you.
But like I also want to take a nap.
Yeah, I feel you.
So,
I think also for me, since we moved our youngest into what used to be our guest room, my meditation practice has kind of fallen off. Like the guest room used to be like my place to go and hang out and meditate. And just recently, within the last week or so, we set up a new kind of meditation area in our bedroom.
mm-hmm.
So that's been really good for me to just kind of have that dedicated space to, clear my mind and get my meditations in. So I think I'm in a better space because of that as well, too. So
we also got a legit meditation pillow, which is really nice. Hi, my name is Jen, and I used to be addicted to pillows on the bed. So before we were just using like superfluous large European size pillows because I thought you couldn't have enough pillows on the bed.
And yeah, I used to get on my nerves, but we worked through that.
I've since we've downsized or like trimmed back some of the pillows. So like some of those were meditation pillows, but I say all that to say we got a legit meditation pillow, and it's actually really, really nice. We'll put that in the show notes if anybody's interested. It's an investment, but it's nice for the space. I like it.
Yeah, definitely.
Really comfy.
Cool. So why don't we do the breath work first?
Yes.
I think you're up for that one.
Yes. So I was thinking through what I wanted to do for the breath work today. And I actually wanted to do a breath work exercise that's inspired by one that was in a book I recommended called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And the concept is that you are using the energy of your chakras. There's this energy, it's, it tracks our spine, think spinal fluid, and that you're using that energy from the bottom up to push that energy up to your third eye and crown and like really open up your ability to kind of tap into some higher frequencies. So it's going to start, I'm just going to walk us through it before we actually get into it. It'll start with tightening those like Kegel muscles. Think like if you were going to try and hold your urine, really hold your pee, tighten your Kegel muscles, and what you're thinking of is you're contracting that energy, and then you're tightening your lower abs, tightening your upper abs. And then as you get through those first 3 chakras, you're going to try and push that energy, like visualize that energy going through your heart, your throat, your third eye, your crown. You're holding as you're inhaling, and then you release. So we'll do 3 of those together. And yeah, I find it to be like really, and it's really relaxing, and you kind of get this like rush of oxytocin too. So I think it'll be nice.
All right.
So find a comfortable seat and let's begin. So taking in a deep inhale, you're tightening those muscles, your Kegel muscles, tightening your abs, your lower abs, tighten your upper abs, still inhaling, tightening up through your heart chakra, inhaling through your throat, inhaling through your third eye, to your crown, and hold. Exhale out through your mouth. Let's do that again. Inhaling, tightening your Kegel muscles, tightening your lower abs, your upper abs, pushing that energy through your heart, through your throat chakra, up to your third eye, up to the crown of your head, and hold. Exhale out through your mouth. We're going to do one more of those together. Inhale, tightening your Kegels, contracting your lower abs, your upper abs, pushing through your heart chakra, up to your throat chakra, up to your third eye. Keep inhaling up to your crown and hold. And sigh out through your mouth. Let's take in one just cleansing breath. Inhale up through your nose and out through your nose. So that was a quick little breath work, but it's Dr. Dispenza calls it the blessing of the energy centers, and I usually like to start my meditation off with that and just kind of focusing that breath and trying to get myself into a meditative state.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Jen. That was awesome. Definitely going to incorporate that into my meditations, I think, going forward. That was cool. So I know you talked to me a little bit before. We had a really cool As Seen on TV segment that we wanted to do. So I think it's particularly relevant for what we have going on. You want to jump into that?
Yes. It's funny how like some of these things pop up into like, whatever you're mindlessly watching, because I'm actually studying to be attuned for my first level of Reiki, to start my journey as a Reiki healer. Mik, our resident Reiki master, is actually going to attune me. So by the time you all hear this, I will be attuned in level 1 of Reiki. Super excited. Definitely want to do a full episode on Reiki and energy healing and what all that means. But very quick, too long didn't read, is there's a universal life force that we all have access to. And getting attuned to that, you can increase your capacity to be a channel for that energy and to use that to heal yourself and others. What we've started to see as, some of these things become more mainstream, I guess, is that people are incorporating Reiki into all kinds of things. Like I have a Reiki infused candle where someone has used, their energy to like infuse this candle with healing. I say all that to say, I was actually watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which Mik actually doesn't enjoy. He doesn't really like to, he doesn't like Real Housewives. It's like too much bickering and whatever.
I saw a funny tweet about it. I think it was. The guy was saying, my wife loves to watch these middle-aged women who argue and then fly new places, eat and argue. And I was like, that pretty much sums up all of those franchises. But, hey, people enjoy it.
Yes. And I will take this moment to say, like, if anybody out there was like, oh my gosh, they're so enlightened. Look, the Lord's still working on me. And yeah, I like watching them fly and eat and argue.
All right.
Okay. And I'm also here for the fashions. But on a recent episode, Kathy Hilton, like of Hilton Hotels, had the women over for a spa day. And the woman who was giving facials was talking through her facials. And I was like, I have to look her up so I can go get this. But she does Reiki infused facials. And that was the first time I had really heard of it in like skincare. It's kind of like I've heard word of mouth that there are a lot of massage therapists that are also Reiki healers. So like, they might be slipping in a little Reiki in there when they're giving you a massage. But skincare, I love it. I need it. I want some more of it. I'm going to go do that.
All right. Well, let's jump into our main topic of today. It's another preparedness topic. We're back in our preparedness bag. So we've covered, water and food, and even talked a little bit about power and electricity. But I think another important aspect of preparedness, it's half of our show title, which is all about shotguns and firearms and guns. And so, people have been asking, when are we going to get to that second part, that shotguns part of chakras and shotguns? And so we're here today.
This is your day.
So yeah, I know, some folks, if you are here for the love and the light and guns just completely scare you, I would encourage you to stick around. But I understand if you like, hey, look, I got my breath work and I want to go. But we're going to jump into some guns today.
Yeah. So, we know that they're very controversial for a lot of reasons. And for the record, we definitely don't take gun violence, and especially in America, we definitely don't take that lightly. And, we have our own beliefs on what should or shouldn't be done by the leaders of this country. But so when we're talking about firearms, we just want to level set here. We're talking about firearms. We're talking about for defensive purposes only.
Yeah. I think just my stance, I hope that I never have to use my guns. I'm all about the love and the light. But, I do have the means to protect myself and my family if needed. A couple years ago, Kirk Franklin, gospel music artist, very religious man, he was having an exchange with a troll on Twitter. And I think the exchange was about Kirk had said something about how much he respects Muslim brothers or something like that. And the troll was basically like, well, why don't you leave your door open and unlocked at night so they can come in and do something to your daughter or something like that, right? Like it was something along those lines. And Kirk was basically like, yes, I have a daughter and the means to protect her. And he said, please come to my house so I have a reason to introduce you to it in the name of Jesus. And so I felt like that kind of summed up my stance on guns, right? Like, it's like, I'm here for praising and worshiping and being spiritually in tune. But yeah, I'm going to protect my family.
Well, they say Plies is Kirk Franklin's tether anyway. So that's like his alter ego. So
yeah, that Plies came out there on Twitter.
Stomp might mean something different,
But no, in all seriousness, there's also another one of my favorite books. It's called This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed. And the author talked about how Martin Luther King Jr., at his home in Montgomery, Alabama, like people who worked with him, were like, yeah, Martin has an arsenal at his house. He knew the risk that he was taking leading the movement and that people were constantly making threats on his life. And so he had the means to protect himself. And as peaceful as he was, he studied Gandhi. He was all about nonviolence. He still knew the importance of having guns and having the means to protect his house.
With Martin Luther King, there's so much, I guess for lack of a better word, that's been whitewashed about him. And it's like this very safe, almost like completely passive persona that I think they've colored Martin Luther King with in a lot of ways. That it's like peace and rainbows and turn the other cheek. And
yeah,
there's so much that I'm so glad of, social media has its, definite negative aspects, but I'm so glad that there's been people pulling clips of different things. And it's not just, I have a dream. It's about protecting yourself, protecting your family.
Mm-hmm.
That I really like getting those quote unquote deep cuts of things that, we've kind of given this one-sided view of this person who's not really here to tell us who he is anymore, Yeah,
they like to only give us the chakras of MLK, but not the shotguns. You know what I'm saying?
I see what you did there.
But yeah, so that I think that passage and that book helped me to kind of formulate my own philosophy when it came to having firearms. So yeah.
Okay. And of course, one of our favorite jokes is from a viral video with the man on the sidewalk and a reporter is telling him about a suspect in the area committing crimes. And he says, "It definitely does concern me a bit, but I pack that thing too." So yeah, just minding your P's and Q's.
Yeah. That's definitely something that Jen and I, we'll talk about, like, something's going on. It definitely concerns me a little bit, but I got that thing on me. So anyway.
So, Mik kind of touched on this a little bit about how he developed his philosophy on guns. We wanted to talk about our own personal histories with guns and how we got comfortable with owning them.
Yeah. Why don't you start first?
Yeah. So I feel like my family history with guns was almost non-existent. My mother had a gun that I never ever saw and did not even know about until like we were moving out of that house. And I was like an adult. Like I did not know that it had been in the house this entire time. I think even if I asked her, she probably would have lied and said like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." So, and I think that was her way of keeping me safe. I'm an only child, so I think it was her way of like keeping her child safe, and it was just something that we didn't talk about. But for her, it was purely for protection purposes. My mom's side of the family is actually from a rural area, and so I definitely saw like very small BB type guns, but it was never a thing. Like I think it was always known that it was for, I don't know if this is terrible, but it was for like raccoons and like if there was like a snake or something like that, like small.
For vermin.
For vermin.
Yeah.
I was like, what's the word I'm looking for? Vermin, yes. For stuff like that. It wasn't for hunting. Like my family we weren't big hunters. We let other people do that. So
basically y'all was trying to keep the vermin out of the vegetables, right? Like that, like keeping them out the garden, that was kind of the thing, right?
Yeah. So. I didn't grow up in a family that got their hands, even though they were in the country, they didn't get their hands dirty with like killing animals. It was kind of like we did eat deer. Deer sausage is amazing. But it was like the circumstances would be like, oh, a deer hit your aunt's car and the cops put it in the trunk so we could take it somewhere to make sausage. But it was like a very kind of like, I don't know, kind of like circle of life type of thing. It was so, and I'm not saying that it was like very like zen or anything. It just wasn't something that we did. So I have a very like, before where we are today, it was a very low to non-existent like interaction with guns.
Gotcha. Yeah. So for me, I think similar story. My dad had a gun. I think he had like a .380 revolver, but I never saw it. I think maybe one time I saw like the case that it came in, like deep in his closet when he was like looking for a tie one time. But like he never talked about it. I don't think he wanted us to know it was there. But I think once we got to like adult age, we had a conversation about it one time. He was like, "Yeah, I don't even think it works anymore. It hasn't been cleaned in like 20 years. So like, I don't even know if he could operate it right now." But yeah, he had one. And I can never recall him like going to the gun range to like practice or anything. So I think it was more like a last resort, if, kind of thing, that he had in the closet. So, yeah, that was kind of my history with guns. I think for me, I talked a little bit about this in our first episode. As I mentioned at the top of the show, got married about 6 years ago. And back then I was kind of like, I'm a husband now. Like I gotta be a protector. I gotta hold this shit down. You know what I mean? Like if something jumps off, the average response time for police to arrive at your home from the moment you kind of call 911 is around 11 minutes here in the States on average. On average. And then, that depends on what city you're in. Some are shorter, some are longer, obviously. But that's the average. And so, that can be a long time. So I knew I wanted to make sure that I was equipped to defend my wife, like if there was some sort of intruder. And I actually don't know if you know this, but the year we got married, like a few months before we got married, I got LASIK. And a big part of that reason was I was like, I don't want to be fumbling for my glasses in the middle of the night if there's like an intruder rolling up in here,
I knew you said that, but I didn't know, like, I knew it was like right before we got married. So I didn't know the precursor was like, I'm entering into marriage. I thought you were just like on some Walking Dead shit. And you was like, I was watching Walking Dead and I can't be fumbling around for my glasses. I didn't.
Well, I mean, I think it took on a greater importance, right? It was
Yeah.
like, if it was just me in there, yeah, I could probably fumble around for my glasses, but like, I have additional responsibilities. I knew we were going to have children. And so, like,
Right.
that's one less thing I wanted to have to deal with if there was something going down. So anyway, like the nerd that I am, I started researching a lot of guns, Google searches, YouTube videos, everything you can think of. I was, just trying to soak up as much knowledge as possible. Then I went to the gun range. I tried out a few different handguns. Handguns just seemed to be a little bit more approachable for me. At the time, I didn't have much experience with longer guns. And so, yeah, I just tried out a bunch of different manufacturers and models. I took like a firearms basics class with one of the instructors at the gun range. And then finally, I settled on a Glock 17 9mm. And that was my first purchase. And then I got this little like fingerprint biometric safe and to keep it in. And I would probably go to the range like once a quarter, which isn't really a lot. If you really want to be proficient, you should be going a lot more often. But that's what I could fit into my schedule. So that's what I started out with.
I'd say probably at that point, how I was on my personal journey, I was just like, you know what? I think I kind of wanted to keep my own status quo. Like I wanted you to be like my mom, your dad. I don't want to see it. Don't have it out. I know where it is if I need it. Now that I'm an adult, like I know where it is if I need it, but I don't know. I think I was just nervous about having an accident.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes me the most nervous. And I think it's transitioned now to what makes me the most careful when I'm handling a gun. But at the time, it's like what makes me the most nervous is like having an accident, because we read about them in the news all the time, and accidentally shooting myself, someone else. And so, I think to your point, that's why you should go to the gun range, train, as often as possible so you can get a little bit more comfortable with your weapon.
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of how things got started. Fast forward about another year, and I was thinking, hey, this is cool. I have a weapon near the bedside. If something goes bump in the middle of the night, right, I can defend the house. But, we spend the majority of our time, at least at that time, this is pre-COVID, we were spending the majority of the time away from home. And so I wanted to be prepared in case there was a situation where I wasn't at home. Do I have the ability to defend myself? And so that's what kind of piqued my interest about going and looking into getting a license to carry. And so I went and did the course for that and got my license, and then purchased a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm, which is a smaller gun, and a holster to go with that so that I could carry that concealed on my body.
So Mik got his concealed carry and had been on me ever since about getting mine. And then, surprise, in Texas, we no longer need a license to carry effective September. So now I don't have to take the class. But we know there are a lot of listeners who are unfamiliar with guns. And so what we wanted to do in this episode is cover the basics, particularly when it comes to safety, pricing, ammo, storage, all of those types of things. So starting with safety, it's very much so a top priority for us, especially us with 2 small children. So we wanted to make sure that we covered basic firearm safety rules.
Yeah, definitely. Every course I've ever taken with the firearms instructor, anytime I go to the range, they go over the firearm safety rules. And so we thought it would be a great idea to go into those first before we really start getting into the different things that are around firearms. So just to quickly go over those rules. So first one, treat every gun as if it's loaded. That's really important. You never know if there potentially is a round in the chamber. And so you want to just treat it as if at any moment there could be a discharge. Always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. So again, don't want to have any accidental discharges. But if you do, you want to make sure that, you don't have anyone or anything in front of that gun that you wouldn't want to hurt. The next rule, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. That's pretty self-explanatory. Then never point a gun at anything you don't intend to shoot. Be sure of your target and what is behind it. So we know bullets can continue to go after they've hit their target. So you want to make sure you know what's behind that target. And then never try to catch a falling firearm. You see that sometimes at the range where two people may be sharing a lane and they'll hand off the gun, which is unsafe. They'll tell you at the range to put the gun down on the table. But you'll see sometimes folks won't pay attention to that rule. The gun may drop and they'll try to catch it. And that could lead to an accidental discharge. So you definitely don't want to try to catch a falling firearm.
Mm. There's something, surprisingly, I found something spiritual in those safety rules. But I think it's, when handling a gun, I think that's what's given me the most comfort in it is I have to be very present in my body, like very present, not thinking about groceries or what else I got to go do today or, what this person said or what that person emailed me that morning. Like you have to be very present because you're handling something that can be very, very dangerous if you misuse it. And so like being present of like where your finger is, where is your arm, who's around you. Like I think it really causes you to like really come into yourself. I'm not saying that like a gun is grounding, but it really requires you to be very, very mindful of your body. Mm-hmm. So let's jump into the different types of firearms. So keeping things really simple, there are two basic types, handguns and long guns. So Mik, you want to start with handguns?
Yeah, so starting with handguns, there are two kind of classifications. You have revolvers and pistols.
So revolvers are what you see in the old school Wild West movies. Most commonly, they hold about 5 to 6 rounds. They spin when you shoot around. You also see them in movies, not to get dark, but like Russian roulette. Mm-hmm. When people are playing Russian roulette and they put the one bullet in, they spin it around. I've also seen it in like, I saw it recently in a zombie movie. And the person was trying to reload, but they were like, it was so painful to watch. Like the what do you call it? The thing that revolves. What is it?
As the chamber?
The chamber. Thank you. The chamber like came open, all the bullets fell out, and the zombies come in. They're like, oh God. And they're trying to like put the bullets in, and they only have so many bullets, and it's clicking, and it's just if you couldn't tell how I feel about revolver.
Yeah, so revolvers are a bit cumbersome to load, and you only get that 5 to 6 round capacity. So that kind of brings us to pistols, which are the more modern handguns that we see. So they have much higher capacities. You see some, like my Glock 17 holds 17 rounds. And so basically these accept a magazine that holds your rounds, and that goes right into the handle.
And what is the magazine?
That is a great question. So basically a magazine is the mechanism or the device that houses your rounds. Do not call it a clip. The firearms instructors who I have worked with, they have a pet peeve when it comes to people calling magazines clips. And I know we've all heard lots of rap songs where they talk about loading their clip. I think they just do that because clip rhymes better than magazine. But the clip is actually a different device. It is basically what's used to store multiple rounds of ammunition. It's kind of like a little plastic piece that's on the back of the rounds that kind of keeps them together. You see it a lot with larger caliber, like rifle rounds. And so they basically allow the rounds to be more quickly inserted into the magazine or the chamber of the rifle. So again, magazine is what most commonly people are thinking of when they say clip. Call it a magazine. Yeah.
On the revolver, that little piece that you pull back, is that the safety? Or what is that?
No, that is
the hammer?
The hammer, yes. Look at you.
So, if you've ever seen like in a movie, like a Western, and they have a revolver and they're pulling that little piece back that's called a hammer. Sometimes they'll even do it with their full hand so they can like fire off pretty quickly. What does Rick carry in Walking Dead? Is it a revolver?
Yeah, he has a revolver. I think it's a 357 Magnum.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I've seen him like do the whole like hand thing, like pulling the hand down on the hammer to like shoot really fast. So in contrast, a semi-automatic means that the next round is automatically cycled into the chamber after the trigger is pulled. So you don't have to keep doing that type of action. So with those, the type of ammo that you'll most commonly see is 9mm, 45, 40, 380, and 22. So the question then becomes, what do those numbers mean? So they're measurements of the diameter of the round. It's a mix of metric and imperial measurements. Let's take it all the way back to grade school. So 9mm is metric, obviously, millimeter. And 45, 40, and 380 are basically fractions of an inch. So, as well as 22. So 22 would be the smallest. So I think sometimes like people call it like a pea shooter.
Yeah.
So it's like a really smaller round.
Yep.
I want to make sure I had the vernacular.
Yeah, you got it right. So I think with that, right, there's a lot of debate about when you go and buy a handgun, you go in and get your semi-automatic pistol, what is the best ammo, right? You need to buy the gun that will basically hold the ammunition that you want to fire. So that's a decision that you need to make kind of right when you're purchasing your gun, right? And so, I've heard people talk about stopping power. You mentioned the 22 being kind of called a pea shooter. So, a 250-pound man coming at you is probably not going to be, affected by getting hit with a 22. So you kind of need to think about how much power you want to have in a round that you are purchasing. So the most popular ones that you're going to see out there are 9mm, as well as 380s. You can jump up to 40 or 45 as well. Those are larger rounds than 9mm. But kind of what you see standard, I think a lot of police carry the 9mm. That's a kind of more standard round. I've also heard people talk about availability, right? So right now we're kind of in this ammo shortage. And so in a kind of shit hits the fan situation where ammo may be harder to come by, and you're thinking through like, okay, what kind of gun should I have? A lot of times people will say, well, you should go for obscure, types of guns because everyone else has the 9mm, so that'll be the first ones to run out, right? So they try to like kind of game the system. But to me, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Mm-mm. I think you would want to go for the gun that the majority of ammo is produced for. So that's why we have all of our handguns take 9mm.
Do we know what's causing the shortage? Is it just like demand is super high, or?
Yeah, I think there might have been some issues with production, just given the virus, and needing to, a lot of industries had to, in their manufacturing facilities, take certain precautions, slow certain things down. So I think that probably had something to do with it. And I also think demand went up as well. Just people were thinking like, oh, this is going to get bad. Like I need to stock up on ammo. And so you had a lot of folks hoarding essentially a lot of ammo. And so that shortage obviously is going to drive up prices as well. So we saw quite a bit of price gouging or just natural increase in pricing. I don't know what you want to call it, but prices were going up on ammo a lot.
And people have been really creative in like buying and selling ammo. We were at the gun range. I don't know if I had told you this, but we were at the gun range. We were waiting to buy our stuff and like rent our little booth or whatever. And there was this woman, and I'm short. Okay. So she was probably like 5 feet, maybe 4'11", sweetest little grandma you ever saw. And she was just going on and on and on about how so-and-so's boutique, her husband was selling rounds. And I almost bought them, but I just didn't need 1,000 of them. And I was just like, what? Who is selling ammo at the boutique? And was selling out.
That's wild.
Was selling out at probably some little boutique in like rural Texas somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just wild to me. So, grandma got that thing on her too, and she is stocked up.
Nice, nice. I wanted to touch on another kind of pet peeve since we're talking about ammo. Most people refer to every round as a bullet. They kind of use that word. And so a round or a cartridge, which is another word, is actually made up of two pieces. So you have the bullet, which is actually fired from the gun, and the casing, which basically is expended. It's on the ground. If you ever watch any of the crime shows, they find the bullet casings at the scene. That's what they're typically using to trace back to a gun, right? So it's those two pieces together that make up the round. That's what you insert into your magazine, which goes into your gun. And the bullet is just the portion of it that is fired out of the barrel.
Mm. A quick note on hollow point or hollow tip ammunition. If you might have heard about it in rap songs or I don't know. But so these are rounds used for self-defense. And what happens is instead of just going straight through whatever it's shot into, it kind of blooms out or mushrooms out. So it kind of stops its momentum. So in a home, those are really good because if you were ever to defend your home, they're not going to go through different rooms and maybe hit someone who's sleeping or, someone you don't want to hurt. So they're going to get stopped in the wall. So those are really great for home defense if you can find those as well.
Yeah. And those rounds are much more expensive than what you would want to, kind of what you would find for target practice. So you wouldn't want to take those to the gun range. But those are what I keep in my handgun that's next to my bed, as well as my concealed carry weapon.
Moving on to long guns. So basically, these are guns that require two hands to operate. They can be shotguns, rifles, submachine guns, carbines, to name a few. Starting with shotguns. So those tend to be tailored for a shorter distance. There's a lot of types of ammunition that you can shoot from a shotgun, but most people, when they think of the spray, you get those with common shotgun shells.
So the 12 gauge shotgun is actually the most powerful weapon that you can own. When it comes to shotguns, gauge is a metric that you often associate with them. And so basically that gauge, I won't kind of get into the calculation of how they get to 12, but it essentially is the diameter of the barrel. And so 12 gauge corresponds to 0.729 inches. And the 12 gauge and the 20 gauge, the 20 gauge is a little bit smaller. Those are the most common ones that you see out there on the market. But there are quite a few others. Getting into ammo. So Jen did mention how, commonly we think about the spray that comes with a shotgun shell. And there's kind of three different types of ammunition that you can get out of that shotgun shell. And so just kind of thinking through them, there's birdshot, buckshot, and slugs. So there's even more kind of subcategories within those. There's buckshot number 4 and birdshot this and that. But essentially that is the pellets that are inside of those shotgun shells and how large they are. So for birdshot, those are going to be a lot smaller. As the name suggests, they're often used to hunt for birds. And then buckshot, which has larger pellets for shooting deer. And then a slug is basically a single projectile, which basically turns your 12 gauge shotgun into a rifle. Essentially, it's one projectile coming out of the gun. A lot of people think that shotgun is the kind of the best weapon for home defense because of that spray. You don't have to be super accurate. The shells, particularly with a buckshot, aren't going to go through walls, so you don't have that issue of penetration. But for me, I think it can be a little bit hard to maneuver a shotgun, even the shorter ones, kind of in a more narrow space, like a hallway. And there's a lot of kickback with the 12 gauge shotgun. So you want to make sure you try it out first to see if you can really handle it. The first couple times I fired my 12 gauge, definitely had a nice little bruise on my chest from some of that kickback. So it took some getting used to. But yeah, I have a shotgun. I just still have my my Glock 17 as my primary home defense gun.
That pump sound, though, Gets people to back on back,
You're
right?
You're right. And that's what we have at the beginning of our show. That pump sound. It's definitely a classic sound you hear in movies and whatnot. And it can be intimidating for sure.
I'm gonna count to 3, and if you don't get off this porch, I swear. No, I'm just kidding. So for rifles, think longer distances. So you've probably seen some type of sniper in a movie. They were using a rifle. A common one that people think of is the AR-15. It's the most popular semi-automatic rifle that we have in America. A lot of people think AR and AR-15 means assault rifle, and that's actually incorrect. It means Armalite Model 15. And Armalite is the company that first developed this style of rifle in the 1950s. There's also other styles of rifles that you can own, like an AK-47. You can pretty easily purchase a semi-automatic AK in certain states. Again, semi-automatic means that the next round is automatically loaded into the chamber for you. Fully automatic is when you can just hold the trigger down and the rounds continue to fire. So there's a process in the states to be able to own automatic weapons, but it requires more extensive background checks, more money, and several months. And I would just take the time to say that, like, for any of the things that we're talking about, like, it really does depend state by state, like how long it's going to take for you to get it. Is there a background check? How much money is involved? What kind of license do you need? Can you even own one? So definitely try and look all of that up before, you trip across some type of firearm law.
Yeah, for sure. Like I lived in New York City for a little while, and you can have handguns there. There's a process, I think, to get a shotgun, but it's similar to like the fully automatic process, where like you have to do extensive background checks and several months process. So yeah, it differs wildly from state to state. So yeah, Jen mentioned a couple of semi-automatic rifles. There's obviously a ton of other different types of rifles out there with different types of actions. You have the bolt action. There's, we talked about pump action shotguns. There's the lever action on rifles. Tons of different types out there. Same with ammo. Lots of different types of caliber that can be fired from those types of rifles. So common ones that are out there, the 22 LR, the 223, the 5.56 millimeter, 308. So, you can go down a full rabbit hole when it comes to rifles. We won't go over all the different options today, but just to let you know, there's just a lot out there that you can look into. So real quick on pricing, there is a huge range. You can think about guns a lot like cars, right? So there are different manufacturers and models that cover different price ranges. So for handguns, you can spend anywhere from $200 or so to well over $1,000. For shotguns, you're looking at anywhere from sub 400 to about 1,000 or more. You can get even more expensive, obviously, if you get a really, really nice one. And then for like the AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, you're looking around $600 to $700 to up to several thousand.
So storage-wise, we definitely are proponents of making sure that you also invest in safe storage of your weapons. So for us personally, we wanted to spend a little extra money on safe storage because we have small children. We don't want them to get access to any of the guns that we have in the house. So we have a Vaultec slider series and an AW safe with biometric fingerprint scanner for our handgun. So like only me and Mik can open it. And the Vaultec runs for about $250. The AW safe is very economical at $100. Mik also has a Secure It Fast box, and that holds like larger weapons like shotguns or rifles. Furthermore, we really, really, really wanted to stress how important it is to train. So shooting is a diminishing skill. It's not like riding a bike. And honestly, I know how to ride a bike. And if you put me on a bike right now, it would not go well. So just think about how much I need to train shooting a gun. So you have to keep the skill fresh. You want to find a local trainer or at least a gun range that you can visit regularly. And look, if you got a busy life and you got kids or other people that you help take care of or like work's crazy, like we get it. I get really annoyed when people are like, well, you need to be doing this once a week and this twice a week and da-da-da. Like, try and get it in. Like, I think if you just try and make it a priority to do it at least once a month, that would be fantastic. And it's not cheap going to the gun range either.
It's not. I think it's really important to not get overly confident when it comes to having a gun in the house, right? You need to know where your skill level is and be humble about it, right? If you haven't been to the gun range in a while and somebody breaks in and you have the ability to run, don't get hero complex and be like, I'm going to stand and shoot if your training is not up to the level to be able to do that, right?
You are not John Wick, baby.
Exactly. So I am very humble. I know when the last time I went to the gun range was, and if something were to happen and I had the ability to get my family out safely without having to use my gun, I would take that opportunity first. So yeah, I think there are statistics about homeowners who have guns, and them, basically falling victim to gun violence, in cases where they maybe could have gotten out. So be humble, know your training.
That conversation also comes up a lot. I've seen on Twitter talking about like women and single women and like, or violence and unfortunately it ends up tragic and like the gun ends up getting pointed back on them. So yeah, like know your training, and if you can run. One way to kind of keep up on your training is called dry fire training. So it's something that you can do at home. It's basically simulating shooting without live ammunition. So, but you want to like double check, triple check, quadruple check that there are no bullets in your gun.
Yeah. So I have what's called the G-Sight laser cartridge. It's essentially a round that you put into the chamber of your gun. And they, on all the instructions, say, like, make sure there's no ammo inside. Take all the ammo out of the room so you don't accidentally, like, some people are like almost mechanical in their ability to like reload their weapon.
They're not present in their body as to what they are doing.
You're right. But they tell you to like get all the ammo out of the room just so you don't accidentally like just load up your magazine, not thinking. And so, yeah, it's basically a laser that is, as soon as the the mechanism on the gun is engaged, it hits into this little gold, round that is a laser on the other side, and it will basically shoot at a target that will recognize the laser light. And so I have the laser training targets that go with the G-Sight laser cartridge. And I think these are great because ammunition, as I mentioned, is really expensive. If you are regularly training, so 100 rounds can cost anywhere from $20 to $30 for a 9mm, and then rifle rounds can be even more expensive than that. You're talking about $70 for 100 rounds.
And that goes quick.
Exactly.
So yeah, with the training that helps you practice your grip, your finger placement on the trigger, your trigger control, like things that are very important, to the point that you want it to become almost second nature, especially when you're thinking about how much, if someone were to like break into your home or something, goes bad, how much adrenaline and probably fear that you're probably feeling is somebody trying to come at you. So you're trying to up your training so it's something that you don't even have to think about.
So for the visual learners out there, I did want to point out a few of my favorite firearm vloggers. So for kind of training and seeing different types of drills, Body by O Tactical, I will link them in the show notes. And then a really cool channel that I found, particularly around helping you find ammunition during the shortage, which seems to be slowly kind of working its way out. But we still are having some issues with certain calibers. There's a channel, American Ammo and Firearms, who kind of gives tips on where to go to find guns and ammo during this kind of shortage right now. There's also a good handgun basics video. It's a few years old, but I found it informative and good for beginners. So I will link that as well. So yeah, I know that's a lot of information. We'll definitely include much of that information in the show notes. But hopefully that's informative for you guys.
And if all of that, like this entire episode, just like stress you the fuck out, like go take an Epsom salt bath, put on some relaxing music, meditate, and just say to yourself, I am protected. And then when you're ready to re-engage, you can re-engage. So as always, if you have a question, please email us at shotgunsandshotguns@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube under the same name. And finally, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and give us 5 stars.
Namaste.